Recently, an AC-130J was sent to take part in exercises in Australia, which is one more signal that the Air Force Special Operations Command, or AFSOC, is trying to find a way to stay relevant during a watershed moment for the direction of the US Air Force. The AC-130J Ghostrider is a fascinating, deadly, and unique aircraft that truly has no equal in the world for what it can do. In fact, I'm almost certain that outside of up-armored KC-130Js operated by the US Marines, known as the Harvest Hawk, there isn't another armed aircraft like it in service today. The US Air Force started experimenting with the gunship idea during Vietnam, and the AC-47 spooky gunships were terror incarnate for enemy troops unlucky enough to be on the receiving side of an aerial broadside of minigun fire. The AC-47s ended up getting handed around to various countries, and somehow Colombia is still operating upgraded AC-47s to this day. AC-119s were used in Vietnam as a stopgap by the US as the follow-up to the Spooky, and after the war those two were retired. Colombia still flies the AC-47, and I assume the few in service are held together with bits of twine and duct tape. The AC-130 also first saw service over Vietnam. It's gone through numerous iterations, and the current version, the AC-130J Ghostrider, costs around $165 million per copy.
For the sensor.
There you go.
Go ahead, sensor.
Money. Got it.
And the Air Force ended up with 30 of these high-tech counterinsurgency flying beasts. Speaking of counterinsurgency, that's what this aircraft is made for. It's slow, it has a limited standoff attack capability, and it isn't really designed to survive and thrive in an environment like what we're seeing in Ukraine or in a potential showdown with China. The capability a gunship brings to counterinsurgency or low-intensity conflict are unparalleled, which is why it's so hard to give them up. But perhaps as the Air Force is changing priorities, it may be time to dramatically downsize the AC-130 fleet over the coming years. The AC-130Js are relatively new. The last one was delivered in 2022, and the first Ghostrider became operational in 2017 while the US was still in Afghanistan. And they were there working and supporting ground troops right up until the withdrawal was complete. The original order was for 36, which was slashed down to 30. Talk of a laser upgrade is dead for many reasons, not the least of which is the legal problems with using a laser offensively in a combat situation. Debates rage about getting rid of the 105mm cannon, which could cause aerodynamic problems and structural issues. Some want to turn the AC-130J into a platform to deploy cruise missiles, drones, and other advanced pieces of kit to give it a standoff capability. Without the 105mm, there would be more room for electronics and upgrades that could make the Ghostrider more survivable, and perhaps better able to communicate and integrate with other assets. It sure sounds like a lot of people want the gunship to stick around, but also recognize that it's an expensive aircraft to keep in the inventory as low-intensity conflict demand has dropped. AC-130s of many types were constantly deployed to Afghanistan for decades, and now it seems to be getting tougher to find a permissive environment to safely employ the Ghostrider. The ability to build and use gunships is a specific skill, and I recognize that it's not easy for a service to rebuild an advanced capability after it's gone for an extended length of time. But having the Air Force's Ghostrider fleet through a planned divestment of the oldest airframes by 2034 would free up a fair bit of cash for other more pressing acquisitions. There's an argument for the investment, that we paid for these Ghostriders and we should keep them for the full life cycle. But to my mind, that's throwing good money after bad. Flight hours aren't free, maintenance only gets more expensive and more necessary the older aircraft get. The divested J models can go to the boneyard, and if we end up in another low-intensity conflict, the US can choose to regenerate them. And if not, there will be plenty of cash freed up and trained personnel that can be used on other combat capabilities that perhaps maybe have a better chance of surviving in a high-intensity environment.